Welcome to the Linguistics Show, where we talk about life, love, and everything else. There's always something to talk about with this couple, so you never know what may come out of their mouth.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Linguistics Show. Today I'm here with my lovely wife, Karal.
Hey, y'all!
I couldn't even keep a straight face when I did it. I tried. I really tried. So, folks, if y'all hadn't learned by now, myself and my wife, we came from different backgrounds, but from the same area. What's an area, you say? Well, if you grew up in the DMV in the 90s, you know exactly what area we talking about. And so one of the things that's really a foundational aspect of both of us as individuals, as well as us as a collective, was our shared and individual experiences growing up in the 1990s. Now you can imagine what someone who was born in 1979 and 1981, what we've experienced over the years. We're that last generation of kind of normal kids. Like, we got to go play outside. We were forced to go play outside.
Being inside was punishment, torture.
Oh my God.
That was the end of the world. You're on punishment. You can't play outside all weekend long. That was the worst.
Oh my God. You mean to tell me I can't go back outside? Oh my gosh. Like, that really was, especially during the summers, the biggest punishment ever. You can't go outside. What? The only thing worse than you can't go outside was you can't ride your bike. What?
Your friends come knocking on the door. Hey, Miss Oates, can Karal come play?
No, you can't go outside. So
I'll be behind the steps looking at my friends waving.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. So, like, think about that for a second. You know, our parents are from, they grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s. The generation before us. Our kids grew up in the 2000s. They don't even know anything from the analog era. We grew up before power windows. We grew up and there was still, like, all right, let me take that back, because power windows did. Yeah, okay. Power windows did exist, but did everybody have them on their cars? No. It wasn't like that. Like, we had regular ass Toyotas and they had crank windows on the damn regular ass Toyota Tercel. So I know that power windows was a thing. I knew it existed.
Right.
But, like, I remember when cars didn't have seatbelts in the back. I remember when cars didn't have a shoulder belt.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember when cars didn't have a shoulder seat belt.
You've mentioned that in passing, like, here and there over the years, and each time that you bring it up, I'm thinking in my head, either out loud, I don't remember that.
Right.
We're only 2 years apart, but
because your parents didn't have a 1960s Buick Skylark.
No.
So, like, my parents did back in the 80s and had a 1960s Buick Skylark.
Well, that clearly I understand.
Or I can't remember if it was the Buick. Was it the Buick or was it the Cutlass? I think it was the Cutlass. So anyway, the point was that all of them were the same. I know we didn't have a Chevelle, and I know we didn't have a GTO. So I think we had a Cutlass. Or maybe it was a Skylark. The point was that all them GM cars was the same. But yeah, the joint don't have it had just a lap belt. That was it. Like, I grew up with having color TV was a thing. Now, color TV had already been out by the time I grew up in the 80s and 90s, but if you had more than one color TV in your house, you were a baller.
You were a baller. You were
a baller. Like, I remember watching TV before everybody had cable, before cable was popularized. Like, we grew up in the era where we saw Atari, then Nintendo and Sega, then Game Boy, then Super Nintendo, all the way up to now with, like, Xbox. Like, we've seen all of this stuff. And so, think about, we were making fun of it the other day about phones. Remember actually having to know someone's phone number? Like, you had to remember their phone number or write it down, and if you
And if you lost that
screwed up and lost that piece of paper, oh my God,
and it
bro!
was summertime too.
Oh my God, bro! And
Your friends are gone.
and you may never see that person. And so if you lost that phone number, it was over. Remember when you had to call somebody's house and then their mama pick up the phone and you had to, "Hi, Mrs. Jones, can I speak to so and so today?" No, you can't talk on the phone. I'm busy.
She's on punishment.
Oh my God! And so like these kids will never know that. They just FaceTime each other. They just FaceTime, text, send carrier pigeons, whatever it is that they doing, but they have no idea what the type of stuff that we grew up on in the 80s and 90s. And so one of the things, like I said before, it's kind of a foundational...
excuse me. Like I said, you get the bell for that, baby.
Anyway, as I was referring to in an earlier conversation, per my previous email and work speak.
Ooh, that is the worst.
Per my previous email. I had to send a per my previous email today at work. But anyway, per my previous email. Now I'm off track. I don't even remember what the hell I was talking about. Our era had some very interesting situations, some stuff that happened during the 80s and 90s that, like I said again, really was a foundational thing for myself and Carol. And the real thing, like if you think about it, for someone born in 1979 and someone born in 1981, the year 1990, like the year 1990, 1991, 92, those years in particular, when we hit our middle child's age, when we hit that magical 6th grade, 7th grade era, that's when I think was a foundational aspect of who we are as people. And so just thinking back to the stuff that happened during high school, the stuff that happened during middle school, and just your general experience in the DMV, how do you think that really helped to shape who you are?
Well, like for me, now that we do have children, I've said this to the kids, and I've said this to you as well, that I had a lack of supervision growing up in the 80s. And
I think we all did, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because there are songs. Okay, yeah, so there are times songs that I hear on Sirius XM or on the radio that like me being 41, I'm jamming to, grooving to. Then I'll see the year it came out, and I'm like, what? I was 9, I was 10. Why did I know all the words to these songs? Mm-hmm. There is no way in the world that if our kids like watch music videos, which I know that's not, I guess, a thing anymore.
They're like a music video?
Because of YouTube now, that kind of stuff. But
music video? What is that? Like, that's how they are, like a music video?
But like had Ashley, for example, who was going to be 9 this year, like had she been singing or even knowing any of the songs that I knew, well, at her age back then, I would have never she wouldn't even have the chance to even know what those songs were.
So, outside of risque R&B lyrics,
shoot, R&B rap, I mean, Mom and Dad, I know that you were all working, and I was a latchkey kid since I was 8 years old in 2nd grade, but I should not have been watching music videos and knowing all the words to certain songs at that young, tender age of 9, 10, 11, 12. But when I hear those songs now on the radio, I get my flashback to when I was 10, 11. I start jamming in the car. The kids start looking at me like I'm crazy, like I'm dancing right now in this chair. And then I think back to my middle school and high school days and think, wow, that was so much fun.
So, like, one of the things that I think about often is how things that we take for granted now were like space age futuristic thought processes back then. Like, do you remember the first time you had a computer in your house? Like an actual PC?
Yes.
Like a real computer?
Talk of the street. People come in, Mr. and Mrs. Oates, can we use your computer? And so my mom was at times more friendly to the kids than my dad was. So usually he would say no to the kids who want to use our computer or use our printer. And so our mom would say yes normally, but then my dad eventually became more helpful to the children who needed to use a computer and printer. Now, it was not anything high tech, but back then it was, I guess, high tech for being in the early and mid 90s.
So I remember when we first got a computer, it was a big deal because I used to have to try to do like papers for school, like book reports and different kinds of papers and reports for school on a typewriter.
We had those
I would
too.
do them on a typewriter. And so we had I guess the in-between of a personal computer and a typewriter, which was like what you would call those word processors. So it was like it was basically an electric typewriter. So that was like the closest thing you had to a computer where you could edit and things like that on little tiny LCD screen. But I do remember getting a computer, and I remember the floppy disks and having to save a floppy disk. And remember, like, a floppy disk was only like 16 megs. The smaller floppy disk that was harder was like the 32 meg.
Do you remember all those numbers?
Well, yeah, because I might be wrong about those.
No, it probably is right.
I'm probably wrong about those, but I know there was 8, 16, 32. The point is that I'm making is that these little discs, think about just the size. Like, I heard on the commercial today, we were like, I'm talking about how, they're giving out free iPhone 13s. But it's a $700 iPhone that's free with your trade-in, and it's only the 120 gigabyte version. 120, only a 128 gigabyte version. Computers came out, if you said 128 gigabyte, they would laugh you out the store. That didn't even exist. I remember when a 128 gigabyte hard drive was considered like, oh my God, you have a huge hard drive. That wasn't even 20 years ago, where that's how fast computer technology has changed. And so just think about it back then, where you had to be able to play Pac-Man or some silly, goofy, basic game, you had to have a floppy disk just to put it in there so you could save it. I mean, and load it up on this computer. So now we have more power than the best computer that anybody you knew back then in middle school or high school. You have more power when your phone's battery's about to die. You have more power in your watch than you have
my watch phone.
your little smartwatch. Your car has more technology than those computers as far as like processing power and things like that. So it's crazy how technology has changed so much. And one of the things like that really changed a lot during our era, that another thing that as a parent you try to explain to your children. So I know this is kind of a meme, so before I get too deep into it, I want to apologize for whoever created said meme months ago, years ago, whatever the case may be. I'm looking like,
what are you about to say?
We know that you're not the one who knows about those things.
I didn't know what a meme was until like 2 years ago.
You probably called it a meme.
No, I didn't.
It's a meme. It's not a meme. It's a meme. It's a meme.
I called it a meme.
I called it a meme. It was fancy. That's the bougie meme.
Because in French, that is pronounced meme.
Because in French, so hence the bougie version of meme is meme. Oh my gracious, that's gonna live in infamy forever. Anyway,
yes. Back to this meme that you're talking about.
So the way the meme goes basically is that tried to explain to my child what burning a CD was, and they really thought that I had to set a CD on fire, like how a record is made, where you have to grind grooves into an LP to make that record into the vinyl, and it's the vibrations with the needle that make the music. No, ma'am, I don't burn a CD with a lighter or a stove to put music on it.
This story to me is new. Stop trying to not laugh too hard either.
No, ma'am. Burning a CD means that you're recording onto a CD. Wait, what? You could record on a CD? Oh my God!
What child was this?
So this was the middle child. This was the middle child because the oldest already knows about like pop culture and 90s technology. Like we did great by all three of our children. The oldest at least knows our history and appreciates 90s hip hop and music and fashion and culture. Our middle is a modern girl. She's new school.
She appreciates late 90s and the early 2000s.
She's Whitley Gilbert.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, she was just flabbergasted by the fact that we actually had physical music. That we didn't have to, we didn't just turn on the computer and say, yo, play whatever song I want. Like, I feel like listening to this right now, so play this. No, I actually had to figure out how much money I had scrounged together.
Go to Sam Goody?
Yes, scrounged together. Remember buying singles, though? So this is the level of pressed we were back in the day. Is that, yo, like when a dope song came out, you had to scrounge together your change so you could go buy the single because you didn't have the $12 for the album. An album was only like $12, but you scraped together like the $265 so you could buy the single.
Because when you're in middle school, all you have is like your birthday money. If you get an allowance, sometimes if you get money, like, I don't know, you find some money on the ground, you save it for a major thing like buying a single.
And see how she said Sam Goody? I was going to
say the Wiz, or what's the other one?
Nobody beats the Wiz. Yeah, it was the Wiz. It was Sam Goody.
They had another one by Iverson Mall.
Oh man, there was another like really really popular like record store in the
Tower Records.
Oh yeah, Tower Records. Yeah, Tower Records. So the crazy thing is, I remember this is how big CDs and tapes were back in the day. When I was in high school, me and my friends made it a point. This was actually a trip. This was a destination on a Friday night. They had a Tower Records on Rockville Pike, right near where Rockville Metro is. They had a 2-floor Tower Records.
Dude,
when you walked into the Tower Records, they had an escalator up top, and you ride the escalator up top just to go see whatever new tracks is out, whatever new singles is out, and then go sit them in your car. You remember when you had to actually put a tape or a CD into the car so you could listen to the music you wanted to.
Right.
Oh my gosh! Like the technology difference is like light years different to what they've experienced. So like that was such an experience for us in the 90s, is the actual record store, going to the record store. That's something that they'll never experience. Our kids will never understand how you were the man if you were the only person who had that tape.
Right.
And so in the DMV, that also extends to the go-go tapes. So for all of y'all uninitiated Bamas, for those who aren't aware, we have our own indigenous music genre here in the Washington metropolitan area. Such, this particular genre in particular, well, that's from the Department of Redundancy Department.
I like that one. It can stay in.
Yeah, it should stay in. I'm full of great dad jokes. Anyway, I need to be full of some Hennessy in a minute. I'm going to pour myself a drink. But anybody who has listened to the art form before will tell you unequivocally that live performances sound way better than any studio performed go-go performance. You could have a band have a whole studio album and release it, and it's trash compared to a random tape that they did on a Thursday 20 years ago. That's just real. And I still have the tapes and CDs to prove it. And thank God for YouTube, because you can pretty much look up any of the band's old shows. Just search the bands and you can listen to it digitally now, which is great for an old man like me, because cars don't have CD players, tape players no more, so I can't listen to my stuff like I want to. The point is you was the man if you had a Backyard tape or a Northeast Grooves tape or a Rare Essence tape that nobody else had. You was the man. Everybody want to dub your tape. So now somebody got a boombox in school and everybody's dubbing your tape, and then you got a dub of the dub of the dub, and now you got to turn your volume all the way to 100, and you can barely hear it because all you can hear is that's all you can hear, along with some slight music, but all you really hear is because it's been dubbed 7 times, but you're the 10th person who's got this tape. So then imagine when CDs came out and now we can burn CDs and it's digital. Oh man, that changed the game. Game changer. And then when we found out how to pirate music online, it ran on CDs.
That had me
the LimeWire era.
Well, that and Napster.
Yes, the Napster era.
So like you would have been a sophomore, so it was that era of that. Not area. Oh my god, the era.
Era. It's an era. The area of that era was everywhere.
Yes, and so like you were saying about Napster, it's like I know that we're jumping from the mid 90s all the way to like 98,
Go
99.
ahead and say it, because you almost said it. I knew you was about to say it.
What was I gonna say?
I know you was gonna say it.
Say what?
You just said it, because we jumping from the 99. I knew you was going there.
I'm not even thinking about Juvenile.
If y'all haven't found out yet,
I wasn't even thinking about that.
This woman across from me that I am related to by marriage.
That is like one of your slogans now.
Well, I thank Tony Kornheiser because he made it up. Anyway,
I thought you were being original. Dang.
I'm original. I'm just saying that I'm not going to steal that man line.
I had no idea that was his line.
Maybe one day if my voice actually is famous and people like listening to me and I get on some other media, I ain't going to be that bama that be like, I said that's my joke. No, that's Tony's line.
Okay.
The point is that the woman that I'm related to by marriage, really what he says is the woman that I live with and am related to by marriage.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we live together and
right.
related by marriage.
So this woman takes any and every opportunity to drop a music quote. I don't care if we're in bed trying to sleep. I don't care if we're in traffic. I don't care if we're at the grocery store. She's making dinner. We're at a funeral. If you hear something,
no, funeral was no. I'm not going to be doing some.
She's going to hear something. She's going to hear something and say it to me later and be like, "You remember when Pastor said so and so bad? You know what I was thinking about the 99 and the 2000."
That's more accurate. I would tell you later. I will not be at a funeral talking about music. I'll tell you in the car.
This woman will take any and every single opportunity to drop a music quote on you. So if you ever say 99 in her presence, just know that back that ass up is coming. Just know that it's coming. If you ever say taking over for the 99, it's over. Like it's a done deal.
Wait, no, okay. I think it's actually a done deal based on our party we had a couple of years ago when that friend and her boo and the other friend and her boo were like doing some. Was it like, what's the game we have that has the black? It's called Black Carpet Vote. I'm looking right at it. What's wrong with me? I'm looking right at it.
We do not name names because they not cutting us a check. But it was a fun party game, and that's all we're gonna go with. Continue.
But as far as like the whole 99 to the 2000, like the way that those two couples were doing that, I have no reason to ever quote that because it's so
difficult
they
for her
ruined
to
it.
not use names, just for y'all know. She
And
kept saying for that couple and the other couple because it's so hard for her to not use names.
Jason has pointed out to me, don't use names, and at times we do have to re-record certain segments when I use a name by accident.
Right, we can't be telling people business without their agreement.
So
that's why I have already petitioned somebody to write us some waivers. So I'll be having all of my friends and family signing waivers, just so you know. I'm lying. It's all a big joke. I don't got no waivers.
Okay,
I'm playing with
back to this whole dropping the music lines. Even though, prior to that party where I was just baffled that this one dude had no idea.
He had no idea who was taking over for the 99 and the 2000. How do you not know who's taking over for the 99 and the 2000?
He's older than us, so he should definitely know. He's probably like,
and you know what happened?
Age.
And you know what happened? His black card got what? Revoked.
I'm sorry, man. Yeah, so basically.
But no, it didn't get revoked because now you ain't cut us a check yet. So anyway, it got suspended. His license got suspended.
Maybe it's back. I don't know.
his melanin license got suspended. His black card got revoked. His melanin license got suspended.
So, like, even though Jason's saying I do tend to drop music lines often, which is still true. I am pretty much over Juvenile in the 99 to 2000 because he, as in that guy who was here, he ruined it. And so I love y'all as a couple, but I was embarrassed. So I cannot even use that whole taking over for the 99 to 2000 anymore.
We've literally talked about this story now for like a solid 5 minutes, and we were just that is our damn show in a nutshell. Do you see how that happened? I love it. That's our show in a nutshell.
And I'm not gonna edit it out. It's gonna stay
go
in there.
edit that show down. That's comedy gold. It's gold.
Yeah. So yes, there was Napster. Remember oh my gosh.
In the 2000s.
In the late 90s, but what Jason is talking about in terms of music in our common interest, yes, I do drop musical lines because I think I am a musical, not a genius. I'm like a little maybe pre-genius in this house, at least when it comes to my lyrical ability to just insert lines into regular conversation. You look at me going crazy.
Because I don't even know what the hell you talking about. Oh, go ahead. That was BGM right there. That was BGM in person. They can't see you, but they can tell what you were doing with your hand, with your BGM. That was BGM. That was BGM. That's my favorite. I love Black Girl Magic. Come on, clap on the. That's not what I'm talking about. Come on, y'all. You started to.
That's why I stopped.
Come on.
So we talked about music. So let's get back to what the actual episode is about, which is just things that we maybe experienced growing up in the 90s and maybe late 80s too, but the 90s.
So you know one of them? I was a public transportation kid. So when I my folks had a house. We moved around a lot. The first time we had a house, we had a little duplex. It was in Wheaton, a little 3-bedroom little duplex. In retrospect, I thought it was the greatest house ever when I was a kid, but if I look back at it now, we could fit that whole house in my garage and in my bedroom. Like, it was tiny. But it was dope to have a house, And so I was walking distance from school, but to walk would have took like an hour and a half. So I took the bus because I had access to tokens, right? So I would walk down a hill, walk down another hill, cross a very, very busy street, and catch that bus up to Wheaton Station, transfer, catch that other bus up Georgia Avenue, and I'd be at school.
Was this during your high school days?
Yeah, this is high school. Okay. Middle school, I just walked. I'm telling you, middle school, I just walked. But high school was far enough where, it was basically double the distance to middle school. So you might as well had just did the metro. So I did metro after football practice. I did metro, in the mornings, in the evenings, rain, sleet, snow, all that. Rode the train. Rode the bus. If I wanted to go somewhere else, I would ride the train. Or I just keep my little all-day transfer and make sure.
Oh, the paper bus transfer.
No. We're gonna get to that later because they're not ready for that.
We don't have to
they're not even ready.
I had a flashback in my head.
Understand?
Bus transfers for the Metro bus.
People have no idea how valuable that piece of paper was. Like,
you lost that joint. You had a luck. You better be like, driver, can you please be nice?
Stranded.
Get the bus.
Dog, like that little piece of paper could get you anywhere. That little piece of paper could get you from Tyson's to Upper Marlboro. It could get you from Germantown to Woodbridge. That little piece of paper could get you anywhere in the DMV all day long. The most valuable thing of the 1990s. The most valuable thing of the 1990s was that Metro bus all-day transfer. You paid that little bit extra so you could get the all-day transfer. But you don't get the all-day transfer if you get on the bus past a certain time. First of all, that was a lesson learned. You learned that early in your bus riding days, is you don't buy the all-day transfer past 12. Because what are you doing? You finna get an all-afternoon transfer anyway. So why are you paying the extra? You just wasted your money. Anyway, the point is okay, so I was a mass transportation kid. Rode the train when I wanted to go downtown, rode the bus all around the hood, rode the bus to different areas, whatever. My kids are of that I need to get a ride anywhere kids.
Well, a lot of it now, well, not a lot of it, it's all now because of where we live. But at the old house, the oldest like really wanted to have that kind of metro life since the bus stop was right at the corner of our street. So she feels like she was left out of that experience by us moving down here because she never had a chance to
this chick needs to
ride on her own.
This chick needs to get a job and get her own house if she's worried about a transit experience.
She
so
wanted
she can do her own thing.
She wanted to walk down the street and ride the metro bus. Right? Was it the P12 or what? No, whatever it was, the J something. I'm making up numbers right
now. You
now.
just saying numbers and letters. The P12 is over by Addison Road.
That was by the old
That's
house.
The P12 and the V12. That's over by Addison Road. That's that Addison Road, like that Addison Road to Suitland. Oh, man. That bus? That bus. So if we were really going to talk about buses, that bus?
The P12 was terrible.
That bus was, so that's like the Walker Mill bus.
Yes.
That's the Walker Mill bus. So that joint go from Addison Road all through Walker Mill, up Addison Road, and all the way to Suitland.
And every single stop, it stopped.
More and more drama.
So long.
Every stop was worse.
Even though it's not far.
And then it finally speeds up a little bit, and then you have 17 more stops to get to Suitland. But yo, like, oh my gosh, that bus, that daggone the Q2. Oh, you wouldn't know about the Q2 and that 70. That 70 bus is known.
I rode the 70 occasionally, and it took forever to get up 16th Street. Oh my God!
That's 70. That 70 is known.
That's more of your.
That's
of
an
your
uptown
thing.
bus. That 70 bus. So you would literally from around my way, you would walk out to Veers Mill Road, catch the Q2 or the Q4. Q4 is gonna go to Wheaton and then go up. Q2 gonna keep going to Silver Spring. You get that Q2 to Silver Spring, then catch that 70. That 70, you uptown. You in the mix. You basically downtown. You can do anything. That's all it took. Is that I could for $1.25 if I wanted to be fancy and have an all-day transfer. For that dollar, I could get from where I lived all the way downtown to the monuments. That's something that these kids don't understand.
Okay, so let me just pause you and ask you to like break it down in like an estimate of what you think like the actual mileage is, because not everyone knows like how far.
It's like, I don't know, like from like where I lived to all the way downtown. From where we lived to all the way downtown is maybe like 15 miles.
But yeah, but of course it's going to be longer because of traffic and stuff.
Yeah, a million stoplights and traffic and all that stuff. So I'm just saying that, like, you know, our kids notwithstanding, they're not the perfect examples of this, but like the whole generation, like my employees, for example, are Uber kids.
Yeah,
these are Uber kids. Uber kids. They won't go anywhere if they can't Uber it. I had never even rode in a taxi cab until I was a whole adult. Like, no, I was a whole adult the first time I rode in a taxi. I don't believe in that sort of stuff. Like, mass transit gets me everywhere I need to go, and I don't mind walking. I'm not a non-walker. So, like, yo, that was something that was like a big deal in the 90s, was that you could get anywhere you needed to go. There was not a dependency on, I got to get my folks to give me a ride. I got to get so-and-so to give me a ride. I got to have money for an Uber. Oh, let me go find Wi-Fi so my iPhone can link so I can sign up a new Uber account so I can get my first free Uber ride. You know how many times I've heard that conversation?
From your employees?
From my employees trying to get their free Uber ride. Meanwhile, their Uber ride costs $40 to take them 10 minutes up the street, and I just be looking at y'all like, young, just go walk outside, take that bus. Just swallow your pride, take that bus.
They're too proud for the bus. You gotta fake it till you make it. Is the opposite of like our generation.
I had somebody actually tell me that they had to resign because the Uber to work cost them too much. and from my perspective, it's like, I understand you gotta do what you gotta do to get to work. I get it, right? But there are other options, and if you're too proud to take the other options until you get your money. I even broke it down math-wise, and y'all know I love numbers. I broke it down math-wise for this employee of mine that if you just stopped Ubers right now and rode the bus for a month, you'd have enough saved up to buy a car, because that's how much you're spending in Ubers every day. and it still went in one ear and out the other because nobody wants to be that person riding the bus. And that's the downside to the way people look at stuff. When we were kids, riding the bus was cool. Now, granted, if you had a car back then, you were really cool, but, you know, there wasn't nothing wrong with riding the bus. Like, everybody rode the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody rode the metro back then. So it wasn't that big a deal. But one of the things that we did used to ride the metro for was kind of the access to different things. So growing up where I grew up on the north side of town, suburbs, northern part of DC, whereas my significant other grew up on the southern part of town, southern suburbs of DC. And so our individual experiences may have been way different based on where we grew up. Like, you know, my neighborhood has sidewalks and metro.
I was going to give you a story about.
You don't have one because y'all don't have sidewalks.
You're right.
And guess what? We moved 2 blocks away and around the corner, and we still ain't got no damn sidewalks.
We have sidewalks.
We have sidewalks on one side of the street. That's not
That's just
real.
our little cul-de-sac, but the whole neighborhood is.
Don't do it
Don't-
because let's be accurate, because the whole neighborhood does not have sidewalks.
I wasn't done talking though,
Okay.
but the whole neighborhood is definitely a walking friendly community.
That's true,
So,
but what I'm saying is it's not
our
like
one street only has sidewalks on one side, but the whole community is very, very walkable. So
there are no curbs on this street outside that has a 45 mile an hour speed limit, and there's no curbs.
I don't
It's
understand
like,
what you mean, but okay.
I'm saying that I grew up in a semi-urban environment.
like no
I grew up in like that's something that when you grow up in. So for those again uninitiated with the general Washington metropolitan area,
what you mean now.
like
a square?
Montgomery,
I don't understand what you mean.
Montgomery County, parts of Prince George's County, Arlington County in particular.
Why you gotta bring in Virginia? Leave Virginia out of this.
Because the
Leave
point
Virginia out.
because the point is those locations, those suburbs in particular, were developed to be urban.
Right, that is true. With
So
the metro
like
and the
there's
bus and all that.
metro, there's the bus, there's walkable sidewalk neighborhoods, not bike path neighborhoods, which is cute. Like I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like I do like that about Waldorf, that there's bike paths everywhere. That's awesome. That's cute. It's a walkable community. That's nice. But where are you walking to? There's no damn grocery store. You want to walk to Chick-fil-A? There's 7 Chick-fil-A's.
They be like me and they walk to Safeway and get a small amount of groceries, enough that I can put in my backpack and get my steps in the morning occasionally. So they can walk to 7-Eleven.
Sigh.
They can walk to Safeway with like a little hand basket's worth of groceries they can put in the backpack.
Oh my god!
And then you walk back.
They put it in a little laundry cart and roll it on
I'm talking
back
about
home.
me particularly
Oh my
putting it in my backpack and walking back home.
So what I'm getting at is that like what we would do is we would ride the bus and ride the train for the access to things that were a little bit different than where we grew up. So, you know, my friend, so because we moved around a lot when I was growing up, my friend group is really diverse. I didn't really have those neighborhood friends that, you know, it's always great to have like your friend who lives 2 doors down or across the street or around the corner. I didn't really have it like that. I knew a lot of people from various different things, from playing sports for so many years, from going to various different schools, you know, being a multi-level athlete, multi-sport athlete, a, you know, multi-minority, you know, being African American and Latino, you know, and also being strong academically. You know, that did afford me a lot of opportunities, you know, afforded my parents the opportunities, I guess is what you would say, to send me to private school when I was younger. You know, I was acutely aware of what our circumstances were financially as a youngster. So I had no misgivings about thinking that we were rich or anything like that, because I went to private school. I knew what was going on, because I could tell when there would be a scenario where, okay, it's a sleepover, yay! Go spend the night at one of your friend's house, and they got, you know, Super Nintendo and a Genesis and all the Jordans and all kinds of cool stuff. And, you know, I'm just happy to be able to get soul food for dinner tonight. You know, something a little bit different. that sort of thing. And then when you're in high school and you realize, you're dealing with kids whose parents are millionaires. Like, you literally go into school with people whose whose parents are millionaires. And, you live in the neighborhood you live in. And so, like I said, we learned early on how to ride the metro around to have access to things until, we had driver's licenses and could drive around. And so, part of that in the 90s, there were different kind of, different neighborhoods, obviously, and everybody had their crew and their clique and things like that. But different neighborhoods also kind of had their different clothing brands. Remember how all of the different local DMV clothing brands from the 90s?
Yes, how could I forget?
So, me being an uptown boy, I had my Madness stuff. So we had our Madness stuff that was clearly, just cool outfits. Then you had your personalized t-shirts you wore with the crew to the go-go. So everybody we had our matching shirts. We all showed up and we squad up. So, we had Madness uptown. You guys on the south side.
What are you going to say? Because you're looking at me like we don't got nothing to
you guys on the south side, y'all had
we had the hobo store down here.
Y'all had Shooters. We had Sabiato.
Yes, we had the Von Teff store.
Oh, I forgot about Von Teff. My
so
god.
Yes, they had the Von Teff store down here. Wow. And so what else was there? Oh, DDTP, right on Pennsylvania Avenue.
I remember DDP. Yeah, I remember DDTP,
which is Designer Discount Trading Post, because there was someone in high school who swore that I made that whole thing up, and I was like, no, this is a real store in Southeast DC, Pennsylvania Avenue. You can't miss it. Everybody, you can't miss the store, and if you don't see it, then obviously you're lying about being there, because you cannot miss the store. And so she swore up and down high school that I made that whole store up.
I touched a nerve with this one, apparently.
Look,
yes, I see it, because the black girl magic is moving. Yes.
But anyhow, that is another one of those local DC brands. But a big shout out to Montu and Mitch Craft, because he made this amazing, as he calls, a tribute shirt that has every single local DC type of clothing line as one shirt. And so I did ask whether he could make some for you and me, and I asked him nicely. I said, I've been a customer for 4 years, and I asked him really nicely. He said no, it was a one of a kind. But
that's funny as a fuck. That really sounded like it was going somewhere. Just to find out, yesterday's price is not today's price. No, you can't just get a free shirt because it's a cool idea.
A free shirt,
just a shirt in general.
Yeah, I would buy it.
I mean,
because it's a really amazing shirt. It has every single DC local brand ever. And so when I saw, I was like, Jason would love this.
You know what else?
And so would I too. But
you know what else I used to love back in the day? Remember slouch socks?
Yes.
Remember slouch socks?
It's making a comeback. You can buy it at the beauty supply store.
Slouch socks. So the official uniform in 1997, the summer of 96, going into our senior year, the official uniform, Butter Tims
and slouch socks.
They better not be laced up. Them Jones
and white slouch socks
better not be laced up. White slouch socks, jean shorts, or cargo shorts. Only the camo cargo shorts.
Thank you. I was gonna say only camo
or jean shorts. And you gotta cuff the bottom 3 times, so you have that wide cuff. Then a plain white tee. That was the uniform. And then it had to be a black cap on top, black baseball cap on top. That was the uniform all summer long. Oh my goodness. So then the other thing that was a DC thing that started when we were kids, and a lot of people will go ahead and say, oh no, we were doing that first, and we were doing that first, and we was doing that first.
Who were the other people? It was only
Gray New Balance.
Okay, that
New Balance.
It's not about who was doing it first. And I will say that is a universal DMV thing. So whether you grew up in Montgomery County or Prince George's or Charles County, wearing your gray New Balance and your gray sweatpants with the white T-shirt was very, very sexy.
I get told that by the woman that I live with and I'm related to by marriage all the time.
Going way back to before I knew you.
I get told this all the time that I need to be wearing sweatpants and my gray New Balance around the house.
Yeah, around the house, but not out in public because.
So yeah, the basically. Those great New Balances were a thing. The 574s, I was partial to the 990s, but 574s, the 991s, the 992s, 993s were dope.
The 991s, the 2s, 3s, that I get. But what's the 574? I need to
The
look at
574 was the one that was like the original retro-looking shoe that had the big N on the side.
Isn't that the
574s? 574s was the jam, young. 574s was dope because it was like, you know, it was the one that wasn't all built up with all the tech. It was like old school.
Because I know what I'm thinking of in my head, so I'm going to ask Google.
Balance 574s. I'm trying to tell you. So yeah, man, like lots of these cool things that we experienced back in the day.
Oh, these Joel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me see what because I can picture it in my head, but I need to see. Got my visual. Oh, okay, yeah, because these 991s look like you about to go run across country.
Now remember that they recycle the same numbers, so they've done multiple versions of the same. Why are we having a New Balance commercial in the middle of the damn podcast? The point is that these daggone
I'm a visual learner, so I need to see on my phone.
These daggone gray New Balances was the thing. If you had to have some gray New Balance or you wasn't doing it.
You're right about that.
So. Another thing, speaking of fashion from the 90s that I remember that was a big deal for my peer group growing up. And it was the first time I had ever been to Iverson Mall. Now, you got to understand.
I'm sorry for my laugh.
You got to understand that I grew up uptown. Now, I had family. My grandmother and her husband lived in what would you call that? You wouldn't really call that Capitol Heights. You call that like District Heights, whatever you would call that.
That was Capitol Heights where they lived.
Yeah, I guess you would call that Capitol Heights. Yeah,
Central.
So living in that area. So I had been some places. I had been to Forestville Mall before, back in the day when they had like an Ames and a Zayres inside there. Now they just have the most ratchetest Target you've ever seen. But yeah, I had never been to Iverson Mall. I'd been by it.
Had you heard of it though?
No, I hadn't even heard of it. Like, I mean, so you got to remember this. We're talking about 1990.
Yeah, 90. Okay.
We're talking about pre-driver's license era. We're talking about middle school. We're talking about like middle school. So it was hard because, you know, my friends were a little bit, you know, in different situations than I was growing up with as far as our families were concerned. But when this craze hit, I had to have one.
What craze?
I'm getting.
Oh, because I was thinking, wait, we're not on New Balance. We already talking about that.
We're talking about the fashion craze that hit in like that 89, 90, 91 and took the hood by storm.
I'm thinking so hard, but I don't know.
I know because you're a female, so it wasn't affecting you.
I thought it was like something universal.
The first time I had ever been to Iverson Mall was because that's where the Montgomery Wards had the starter jackets.
Oh, that was for the girls too. Yes, we had to have a starter jacket too.
So when these starter, you got it really excited just now about the starter
flashbacks to my middle school days.
There were multiple kinds of starter jackets. You could get that pullover. I think like they call Anorana. No, that's them chairs. What do you call them pullover jackets? What do you call them? No, they got like a name, young. They called something. Anyway, them pullover kind of quarter zip jackets.
I know what it looks like.
You had those. Those were cool. Then you had the ones that were like the long, full-fledged, like triple fat goose parka that had like the logo on the chest and on the back, like you was really on the sideline. Those were pretty cool. But the two starter jackets to really have was the satin kind of
with the
throwback,
silver buttons going down.
The satin kind of throwback, like that jacket, the varsity jacket. Those were
starter jacket.
You don't have to whisper it. So yes, yes, we do need starter jackets. You don't have to whisper it. I've been on varsity jackets for about 4 years now. You know, my swag is definitely retro super future. But anyway, the kind that everybody actually did get was the parka. So the parka was just the regular kind of bomber jacket with the elastic around the bottom, but it had the hood. And so they had different versions. When they first came out, it was just the letters across the back. Then you had the little logo on the chest. But then the next year they came out with the letters across the back with the logo. So you had the letters and the logo. Oh man, that's dope. But then they came out with the big giant logo on the back. This coincided with the year that the Atlanta Falcons changed their uniforms and they got Deion Sanders. So I remember that black Atlanta Falcons starter jacket was the toughest thing out. The Atlanta Falcons joint and that Oakland Raiders joint.
Yeah, the Raiders one was a big one, but I just learned just now that Deion Sanders used to be on the Falcons. I had no idea. So don't walk away, come back. So he literally got up from our table and walked away. I had no idea that Deion Sanders was on the Falcons. Okay.
Anyway, starter jackets. Yes, starter jackets. So that was the first time I had ever been to Iverson Mall. I hadn't because we went all the way to Iverson Mall because apparently Montgomery Wards had starter jackets. And just in case Big Bill the driving wheel is listening.
What's my dad got to do with the starter jacket?
Just in case Big Bill the driving wheel is listening, just so you know, my first starter jacket was an all blue Detroit Lions. And all blue Detroit Lions. Yeah, it was dope. It was kind of a cool jacket. I remember because the lion was real big on the back and it was blue. The whole jacket was blue. It was a cool jacket. So yeah, starter jackets like. Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, so since you were coming down to Iverson Mall to get your starter jacket, so was it with your grandmother who was bringing you? Or was it your parents who were bringing you?
In this case, it was actually it was like all of us was in the car.
So do they not have stores that sold those kind of jackets in your area?
So the funny part about that is no, I'm about to tell you. So the funny part about that is if you grew up in our area back in the 90s. Especially uptown, our culture was being suppressed. Our culture was being suppressed, especially in the suburbs. Hip hop was being talked about as like, oh, you guys are all gangsters, you're thugs, and things like that. The whole go-go movement was really, really identified. It was really, really, we were looked down upon. Oh, you kids are all gangbangers. Y'all in a gang. It's like, we're not in a gang. That's our crew. We hang out together. Oh, y'all are a gang. It's like that sort of thing was major in our era, like in middle school and high school. In the northern part of the DMV. Long story short, what I'm getting at is you couldn't go to Wheaton Plaza or Montgomery Mall or like any of those malls on that side of town and get black clothes. You couldn't even find it. You couldn't get nothing for us in those stores. That's why everybody thought we were all rich kids, but if you really break it down, the only stuff you could buy was Polo and Tommy Hilfiger at Macy's and well, it wasn't Macy's back then. It was Hex back at Hex. All you could buy was Polo and Tommy Hilfiger.
Get some Nautica.
And some Nautica. My Nautica jacket was fire in high school. I had a fire Nautica jacket. But yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And so as it pertained to starter jackets, once they started to become, associated with gangs bangers and things like that, once they start to get, all it takes is one story on the news say, oh, they got robbed for a starter jacket. Now you can't find a starter jacket anywhere in Montgomery County.
So I have to ask my dad where he got my jackets from, because as a kid, I didn't go with him. I just knew that it showed up in the room, and so I guess he got an Iverson Mall. Ask him. I'm
trying to tell you that was, and I didn't know back then. But thinking about it, yeah, because like going to the mall when we were younger, there would be one store you would see up against the wall. Up against the wall was the only store that we had on our side of town.
Merry-go-round too.
Well, no. So by the time I got to like later in high school, that had changed, and there was much more. Like there were lots of black stores at that point. But when we were like middle school age, up against the wall was it. That is the only place you go get your cross colors.
Cross colors.
And your Gerbos. The only place you could go to get your cross colors and your jabots was up against the wall. And so, like, yeah, like that was a thing. But that's why I feel like that's why we had to go all the way to Iverson Mall, because it was like one of the only places that still had starter jackets.
I didn't know that about you.
I guess somebody had tipped my folks off, because that was a long drive.
Exactly.
That's a hell of a drive.
I'm like, why y'all coming down there to buy a starter jacket?
That's a hell of a drive to drive from Gaithersburg all the way to Marlow Heights.
Yeah, Marlow Heights, Hillcrest Heights, Temple Hills.
To spend $80 on a kid's jacket. So that's crazy. But anyway, so like other things that we've kind of talked about that were important things growing up in the 90s that a lot of different generations aren't going to experience. The current generation will be able to say, yeah, we know what y'all talking about. And that's just the trauma that we faced. Remember the 80s and 90s, all the crazy things that happened during the 80s and 90s? Like, I am one of those kids that was standing outside looking at the sky when the space shuttle exploded. Like, I had that experience as a 7-year-old. You know what I mean? Excuse me, as a 5-year-old.
Well, I was 3. And
of course you wouldn't remember. But what I'm
know.
saying is I'm old enough to remember standing outside, because we all got to stand outside because you could kind of see the space shuttle launch, and boom, space shuttle explodes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we watched the OJ trial. I remember
watching that.
I
in high school,
being at my homeboy's house. Ironically, he was Caucasian. I remember being at my homeboy house when the whole OJ thing hit the fan, and
Is
it was
that
me.
GK?
Yeah, it was me and him and his mom just sitting there watching OJ in the Bronco, and just like, what the F? I remember the division that happened at school when the verdict happened, and that. But you know what else I remember vividly? The whole LA riots, the whole Rodney King, the riots. I remember that vividly. I remember sitting watching TV like, I can't believe this is happening. And then I also remember my uncles and my father and my mom and my grandmother telling me, oh, you can't believe this is happening? This shit literally just happened 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, that's crazy how life repeats itself, right? Well, 30 years ago at that point.
I understand what you mean.
I remember the birth and infancy of hip-hop. Like, our second love. Like, I love my wife, but I love my hip-hop.
Yes, I know. You love your music.
And so, like, I remember it from when it was nothing. What was your first CD? First tape, rather, because you wouldn't have been a CD. What was your first tape?
Well,
you bought? That
was going to say, because I heard hip hop because of my dad in the 80s. So, like, that was.
Yeah, I guess.
Because he was a DJ as his side thing. So, like, hip hop and, like, the love of music, that didn't start in the 90s for me.
What was the first tape you bought?
That I bought with my own money, but someone bought for me. Because.
Why do I have to say things 10 times?
Because I can answer it differently based on.
What was the first tape you bought?
With my own money. I don't remember the first tape that I actually bought, because my parents would buy the tapes for me, or my aunts would buy the tapes. So I don't know what I bought with my own allowance or birthday or grade money. I don't know. But I do know that the tapes that were purchased for me, when I look back, I'm thinking, my aunt should have never bought that for me, but she and I were hanging out, went to Sam Goody or whatever, Tower, The Wiz, whatever it was, and she bought it for me. But I don't know.
I'm sorry. I lied. I'm sorry to my parents. But yeah, I bought Straight Outta Compton. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I guess I looked old enough to be 18 and buy the tape from damn Tower Records, but yeah, Straight Outta Compton. That's what happens when you're a tall middle schooler. You
were like a high school size, probably.
Yeah, when you're a tall middle schooler, you can buy tapes. Then when you're a high schooler with facial hair, you can buy alcohol. It's just funny how that works. And now I'm a 40-year-old man with a whole head full of gray hair, and everybody thinks I'm a senior, so I get discounts.
Oh,
I'm lying. I don't
Because
get
I'm
no
like,
damn
no one's
discounts.
giving you. You don't look like you're 65. That's
No, I
that
know
would
I
be
don't. I know I
an
don't.
insult to you.
I know I don't. I got the salt and pepper action for y'all. Salt and
Rick
pepper
Fox.
action for y'all. Nah, Rick Fox don't even got salt and pepper.
Oh,
Rick Fox is straight salt.
It's all salt now.
He's salting the game.
But so okay, so we've talked about like middle school, high school music, but like during high school for you, what were some of the things that like really stood out? Because I know that your experience going to a Catholic school was definitely different than me going to public school. Because I had this misconception about your high school that, well, basically your whole county, because I was wrong about the whole county, but I had this thought that your whole county was all wealthy, that they all had a certain lifestyle, because on the news that's how it was. And so for high school, I would have never known that, like, it was not what I would see on TV or movies, because I assumed that going to a private school or a Catholic school meant a certain kind of experience.
I mean, academically speaking, it was a top level experience. But I would say, like, on a day-to-day basis, it was just like any other high school.
I
would say it was just like, and to be fair, compared to DC and Prince George's County public schools, it would be almost the same, because we had a dress code. We didn't really have uniforms. We had a dress code. You know what I'm saying? So, that being said, it was really much more the extracurricular. I don't know what extracurricular is. I guess that was like extracurricular. Now I'm fucking it up.
As you were saying, keep on going.
Now I'm fucking it up.
Keep on going.
I would think really it's where the extracurricular and really, well, it was when extracurricular stuff happened, you would notice a difference. Like, case in point, I remember very vividly being in 7th, 8th grade and kind of being made fun of because I didn't have a whole bunch of different shoes, and I was wearing my same shoes to every basketball practice. As an incoming freshman in high school, I could dunk a basketball. I ran pretty fast. I played football. I thought I was still going to play basketball. I didn't end up keep playing basketball, but you noticed in those environments that I noticed, I guess, early on that it's not like I'm not the same kid or I wasn't as good of an athlete, because I was better than a lot of the kids that I played against in that time frame, but I didn't have access to nice stuff. So I didn't have like a good pair of sneakers. I didn't have like, the right kind of workout clothes and things like that. I didn't have, access to a paved like court to go practice at, like stuff like that, like little things that I didn't realize at the time were hindrances actually were. And so the other part of that is like, again, extracurricular. When somebody has a party at their house and, hey, there's a party at Kristen's house. Okay, we're going to Kristen's house. So we all figure out how we're going to get a ride to Kristen's house. And you realize that Kristen lives in Bethesda. Oh, you live in Bethesda? That's cute. Whatever. All right. So we go to Bethesda, but it's not Bethesda like right off Wisconsin Avenue. We're talking about like a palatial estate up in the hills with like 13 bedrooms. Like, I had that kind of experience growing up where I'd go to people's houses who had a duplex just like mine or lived in an apartment, and in the same week go to a mega mansion.
Right.
And that was really what my experience was like. I feel as though it prepared me for regular life because I am comfortable in all different kinds of settings. Yes, I'd rather be around people like me, share common experiences, but it's made it so that I'm adaptable in various situations, and I'm able to, I'm not necessarily one of those people that shies away from not confrontation, so to speak, but shies away from conversation rather with people who aren't like me. And that may have been the case if I grew up in a different environment or went to a different school. I could say that for sure. I would definitely say that for sure. And then the last thing, most importantly, is that I wouldn't have had the same kind of opportunities had I just went to a public school. Now, The public schools in my neighborhood back then, the two schools that I would have had an opportunity to go to, one of them was a notoriously terrible school in that area. It was just known as basically the same kind of school that our middle child goes to now. It's known as the school. There's a fight every single day. You're going to have to fight just to get back to your neighborhood every single day when you walk home. It's a fight every day. It is what it is. Or the other school, which was outside of my district, which was actually closer to walking, which would have been a whole hell of a lot of strings to pull just to get into. I opted for playing sports and thinking about my future. And so that's why, when they asked me, did I want to do it? I said, yeah. And, after that, my parents figured out what strings they had to pull to make it happen. So I would say, if you really wanted to summarize all of that, because that was a lot, the main thing that I could say from my high school experience that may have differed from yours, since I've been to your actual campus now and I've seen whole old school country the old school big country high school, stereotypical big country high school, is where my wife went to school. Meanwhile, I went to the stereotypical semi-urban, little smaller, densely populated high school.
But the high school that I went to, even though that is the zone that I was in, it wasn't as if it was the nearest high school to where we lived. It was, at the time, there were not enough high schools in Waldorf, so
there still isn't.
Well, yes, that is true, but I'm talking about
I'm just waiting for any of y'all who might have some pull to do something about that. Holla at somebody so we can get some more schools and some infrastructure down here.
Yeah, but
please.
But my high school, it was about a 15-ish, 20-minute ride, like not even counting the actual bus stops. But that's where I went. It was in the country. But like for me, high school taught me so much about who I am now. And at times I think, if I would have known how I am as an adult, maybe I would have done things differently in high school, such as maybe not be as vocal and not as talkative as I was, because I mean, it was not a bad thing to be friendly with different groups of people, but I wish I would have had lasting friendships and not maybe judged some people based on what their interests were. And so, like, there were groups of people that I would talk to every once to say hi, hello, whatever. If we were in class together or dance team or track or whatever, I was friendly to everyone. But I just didn't make certain kinds of connections that I now, as a grown-up, wish I would have had a more diverse group of lasting friends, because I know that diversity when it comes to race is really important, and so I don't have those kinds of connections and friendships. I mean, I had them in high school, but it was more like hanging out for maybe like a certain kind of activity, but not like keeping those things going once high school was over. And so I would definitely tell my younger self to not be afraid to have diversity as like a real thing in your life, to like make it more than a surface level thing.
No, that's really important. I mean, if I could go back and think what I would tell my high school self, I would probably tell myself to get out of your own head and just do what you know you can do. I still kind of suffer from, being in my own way and not believing in myself when everybody around me believes in me. I just don't tend to not see it that way. But that would probably be what I would tell myself. And then one last thing, we talk about living in the 90s. It is also a very important thing that myself and Carol talk about all the time and make fun of our kids, because we actually just experienced this the other day. Well, not the other day, about a couple weeks ago, actually, when one of our favorite TV shows had its finale, and there will no longer be Blackish on TV. And it was a big deal for our family, because for our youngest and our middle in particular, they literally grew up on this show. This was an every week we watch Blackish together type of thing. And so those two youngins, this was a big deal for them.
Yeah,
they literally watched every show.
Yeah,
Aaliyah was into it, but not as into it as like Angie and Ashley, who again, like the show was based, spanned their entire lives.
Yeah.
So we try to explain to our kids that experience is something that myself and Karal experienced maybe 10, 12 times growing up. Because we had lots of cool shows that we loved, and they all got canceled.
Yeah, Family Matters, Cosby Show, Different World. There was
Martin, Fresh Prince, like
Step by Step,
Living Color. Like they all
I like Step by Step.
Step by Step.
I like that show with Suzanne Summers and the Who Shot Jr.
And who shot J.R.?
Patrick Duffy is his name.
Oh my God, I don't know who that was. But like, yes, like all of these kind of shows. And you know what our kids have nowadays? Netflix.
I was gonna say that they have YouTube and reality
and reality TV. So like, that's something that I could say it was a formidable part of our childhood growing up. Mm-hmm. Is that we might not have always seen the best examples, but we did see examples growing up of family structures. We might not have seen the best role models, but we saw black fathers, we saw black moms, we saw family structures, we saw how to have relationships, how not to have relationships, we saw how to be successful, how not to be successful, how to be funny, how to be creative, and live in your own world. I think that the two shows for me growing up that were most influential for me. I mean, obviously Cosby Show was influential, obviously, but that's a given, and we're not even really going to talk about that one because that's the obvious one for our age group. The two shows for me were Martin and In Living Color.
Right, In Living Color.
Martin and In Living Color were the two shows for me, mainly because both of those shows exhibited a level of creativity and kind of freestyle that basically was the spirit of our favorite genre. Mm-hmm. It was the spirit of our, they say that hip hop isn't a musical genre, it's a lifestyle. It's who you are, it's the way you live. It's not just the music, it's the dress, it's the slang, it's like all of these various different things. And so Martin and In Living Color were the two shows for me. Martin being obviously Martin Lawrence being a DC native, and also just being flat out funny as hell, and all the characters on the show were great. Everything about the show was just hilarious. It was like done to the perfect level. It was corny on purpose. It was just done perfectly. And then In Living Color, like obviously we had ensemble TV shows before. Like you had Saturday Night Live, you had like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and all those shows back in the 70s that were kind of like that. What's that show, Laugh-In, like back in the 60s? Like they had ensemble shows before. They had skits, sketch comedy before, but never on the level that celebrated us and talked about stuff that we knew about and could relate to. And the best part about all of these shows that we talked about is that the channels were smart enough to give us all of them at the same
nights.
time. Yes,
my family.
You had Sunday nights.
You
had the Sunday night Fox lineup that was like In Living Color, Martin, and then they would throw Married with Children, and then they would throw Married with Children because Married with Children was hilarious. So they throw that in there, and The Simpsons. So think about your lineup. Think about that 2-hour lineup: Martin, In Living Color, Simpsons, and Married with Children.
Sure.
And then they flexed it even further when they gave us Living Single, because then now we had a bunch of black shows.
Right.
Oh my goodness. But then ABC said, oh yeah, TGIF on you.
But that was a whole different day though. That was Friday.
I know, but that's what I'm trying to say is that
Sunday.
The channels all did their own things because NBC said, "Oh yeah, we gonna give you Thursday night," when they had Cosby Show, Different World, Fresh Prince.
Well, Fresh Prince was on Monday nights though on NBC.
Oh yeah, because you know what? Because Fresh Prince was on Monday night because I would have to fight myself to watch that or Monday Night Football. What's it gonna be? That or Monday
I
Night
guess
Football.
it depends on
that
who's playing,
that was
I
the
guess.
fight every time. So yeah, no, Fresh Prince wasn't on every Monday though. I remember it.
Well, they
I
had
remember
season
it being
breaks, of course.
No, I remember it being like because they did the same thing because they thought it was a popular thing to do. It's just let's put all the black shows on one night. So it was Cosby Show, Different World, Fresh Prince, and then it was another show. Remember Rock?
Yeah, I did not
God.
like Rock, and not because he was a garbage man, which now
You ain't like him because he's from Baltimore.
I did not like. I did not like how his wife, and I forgot like what her name was. Oh, Ella, was that her name? She
no idea.
was so So basically, I did not like that show because of one person. But I had a moment just now that I need to stop judging whole situations based on one moment. So I probably, as a grown up, would have liked Rock because he was working hard for his family. He was. They can't stop with the bell now. But like Rock was working hard. He did a job that he probably did not want to be doing, being a trash man. And so I probably would like Rock as a grown up. But I guess we're doing all kinds of 90s.
Talk about stuff in the 90s.
Yeah, you're right. It is a 90s. So like the shows that I liked, of course, were Living Single. That was a must for me. And I.
Oh, you mean the original Friends? I'm sorry. The original Friends? Friends is not a real show. They stole the whole thing from Living Single. My bad.
Yes, so you did tell me that a few months ago, and I was like, oh, that's a good point. They have a lot of comparisons.
It's literally
right.
the same show if you watch it.
Yes, you're right. When you tell me that, you told me that. I was like, oh, good point. But definitely Living Single. I loved Wayne's Brothers. Now, I know that they were corny, but we're happy and we're singing and we're colored. Give me, come on,
high five.
Do it again. And so even though that show, at times, they were so goofy, like you thought it was a corny show, but I could watch Wayne's Brothers and Living Single repeats all day and still crack up like it was the first time I ever seen it.
I watched Wayne's Brothers just because you giving me Johnny Witherspoon. Anytime you giving me Johnny Witherspoon,
because of Shauna Marlin.
Anytime you giving me Johnny Witherspoon, it's worth watching. That's for sure. So yeah, just thinking about those different TV shows and different music and clothes. Different things that we experienced back then. I think that the overall kind of summarize all of this is we ain't had no damn supervision. We was doing whatever the hell we wanted back in the 90s, and look how we turned out. We fine. So maybe it's time for us to start trusting our kids a little bit. I'm not saying really trust them. Just a little bit. Maybe we should start letting them ride their bike for hours on end, like how I used to.
I think that's wonderful. Maybe
we should, go ahead and get Aaliyah a bus pass and be just like, be back by 7.
But the thing is, how's she going to get there?
So yes, let your kids go do things. Let them experience life. Cut the internet off for a day or two. You have the ability to cut that Wi-Fi off. Trust me. You cut that Wi-Fi off, them kids gonna come out of their rooms like zombies, and you'll be able to actually have family time. Make them go outside. You know what? We used to be in trouble if we came in the house. Make their ass go outside. Let them experience life. You got to scrape a couple of knees and stub a couple of toes.
You gotta ride around with no helmet.
Right, you gotta ride a bike with no helmet.
Bike helmet. Forget that. We don't need those things in this family.
You gotta experience life. You can't shelter them forever. Like, yes, we all live through all that, and we're smarter because of that. And that's why we are protective of our kids, because we experience so much shit, and we're smart enough to say, you know what, I lived through this. Maybe you should, be careful with this, or maybe you should be careful with that. There's levels to that. You don't want to do too much and then end up stunting your kids' growth by sheltering them and not letting them experience anything. So I hope y'all kind of enjoyed myself and my wife's little trip down memory lane. I broke my own rule and tried to put a date stamp on the recording. Jay-Z told me that, like, you don't never put your date, you don't never put the year on the record, because then it's timeless.
Right.
Talk about the top 5 MCs another time. Timeless. So, thank y'all for coming with us on this wild journey on a 70 bus down Georgia Avenue, winding down this windy road down on that 70 bus down Georgia Avenue and on the 16th Street and all those daggone stoplights and that ridiculous traffic circle, and talking about back in the days with us. We could actually go on for hours on this topic, but
because it makes us laugh, because like we have so many things that are really milestone ingrained in our head, memories that our kids either they don't get, but like we as the parents can definitely vibe and connect on those kind of memories.
That's right, that's for sure. So if you like what you hear, you better have subscribed. If not, I'm coming to your house and I'm pushing that button for you. Like, subscribe. All these daggone podcast venues get you on what? Spotify. What else? Stitcher. What else? Them two. But if you want, man, you just holler at me and I email. Go to the website, linguisticshow.com.
Yeah, if y'all can listen to it there, and
I email you the Joe if it's that serious, man. Hey, just let me know. I send it to you. I airdrop it to you. She don't know what an airdrop is. It's okay. It's okay. It's
like
okay.
Dropbox?
Oh my God. No, baby, not like Dropbox. It's okay.
You can tell me later. I don't know what that is.
Technology.
You can tell me later.
Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this little tidbit from our time talking about our childhood. We're going to have another episode like this in a couple of weeks, because this is something that we talk about often. We talk about every day at home, what it was like, growing up in the DMV in the 90s, being raised in the 80s, growing up in the 90s, being young adults in the early 2000s. Like, think about that era. Think about that era of the early 2000s. Like, I was at work downtown 3 blocks away from the White House on 9/11. Like, think about that. It's like we've experienced a lot, and I think that sometimes these little trips down memory lane are really good for helping people to think about their experience. And maybe something we talked about brought up a good memory for you. And if it did, why don't you just shoot us a little message or something and let us know how it went. And maybe we'll use your information and your story rather on our next episode. So until next time. This is Jason again.
And this is Karal saying, not hey, but goodbye.
Why would you say not hey?
Because hey is like hello. We're ending the podcast, so I'm not going to say hey.
No, I know, but I'm saying, why would you say not hey? Like, I don't.
Goodbye.
All right, y'all. Good night.
If you enjoyed this, like, comment,
subscribe, and share to the Linguistic Show.
This has been an Ashangali Enterprises production.
Co-produced by Naomi. Music by Brassville.